The MacBook Air M1 2020 is now several years old, but it still remains one of the best laptops you can buy today. 2022, which comes with hardware improvements and a brilliant new design, and it's also since launched new M3 MacBooks, though no MacBook Air yet, but as the years have gone on, the M1 MacBook Air has dropped in price, making an already great value laptop, which launched at $999/£1,599 Australian dollars, even better value. It also continues to run applications well, and supports macOS Sonoma, the latest version of Apple's operating system. Its long battery life, which is again down to the M1 chip, which is impressively efficient, remains ahead of many more modern, and expensive, Windows 11 laptops as well. That's why Apple, with a break from tradition, has continued to sell the MacBook Air M1 2020 even after the release of its M2-powered successor. Price-wise, Apple nailed it at launch, undercutting a lot of Windows-powered Ultrabooks. Of course, this certainly isn't a cheap laptop, but nor does it feel overpriced, especially compared to its similarly spec'd rival, something that Apple has been accused of in the past. However, nearly 4 years after it was released, the MacBook Air M1 2020 has enjoyed several price cuts, especially when the M2 version later launched, so if you can get it in a sale, this is even better value for money, and is one of the reasons we also recommend it as one of the best laptops for students as well. Apple has also been accused of caring more about aesthetics of its products than the actual features and functions, but with the MacBook Air M1 2020, we actually think the opposite is true. This is because while the MacBook Air has some huge changes on the inside, most noticeably the M1 chip on the outside, nothing has really changed. So, this model looks, and feels, just like the previous model, and the model before that. For people who love the look of the MacBook Air, this may be good news, but we feel it's a bit of a missed opportunity. The M1-based visual overhaul of the operating system offers a nice change, while still feeling familiar. The fact that both new and legacy apps run well on the M1 chip is very commendable, and so far there don't seem to be any issues with running apps built for Intel Macs using Rosetta 2, the tool used by Apple to allow older Mac apps to run on the M1. Also, the fact that you can now run thousands of iOS apps and games pretty much flawlessly is a huge win as well. Battery life also seems to be fantastic, and the fanless design is nice, as it means the laptop runs silently. We do have our concerns about how it manages heat, however. In the end, we'd have liked Apple to have been a bit more ambitious with the design of the MacBook Air M1 2020. A bold reinvention of the laptop to match the internal hardware and software overhauls would have made this an even more exciting device. Prices for the MacBook Air M1 2020 start at $999/£1,599 Australian dollars. As usual, there are a number of specifications available at launch, and you can further customize these to get the MacBook Air 2020 that best suits your needs and budget. The base model features an M1 chip with an 8-core CPU and 7-core GPU, 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB SSD. There's also a higher spec model, priced at £1,249/£1,249 Australian dollars, which has an M1 chip with an 8-core CPU and 8-core GPU, 8 GB of RAM and 512 GB of storage. So, for that extra money you're getting an additional core in the GPU, and double the storage. You can also configure these models to have 16 GB of RAM, for $200/£200/300 Australian dollars extra, and up to 2 TB of SSD storage, for $800/£800/1,200 Australian dollars. For comparison, the MacBook Air 2020, launched earlier in 2020, also started at $999/£1,599 Australian dollars, which was actually cheaper than the launch price of the MacBook Air 2019. So you're getting the MacBook Air M1 2020 for the same price as the earlier model, which we commend Apple for. If you bought a MacBook Air a few months ago, however, you may feel a little annoyed that it's already outdated. That $999/£1,599 Australian dollar entry point isn't just the cheapest way of getting an Apple laptop. It's an incredibly competitive price point that undercuts many of the best 13-inch laptops running Windows 10, such as the Dell XPS 13. If you thought Apple's laptops were overpriced compared to the competition, think again.